Welcome to all. In this particular session, we will see what are streams and what is IO, input output. Okay, in the previous session, we have seen the operators which are available in Java, and 2 to 3 concepts are remaining in that operator concept. So I will come to that particular concepts when I take one program and I show you how exactly it is working. Okay, so now let us continue with the concepts. So this is IO basics. Okay, so IO means input output, isn't it? So ultimately, whenever you write some programs, there will be some input, there will be some outputs, isn't it? So you can recall your previous semesters or first semester when you started writing the program. If you are not from CS background, if you are not from PCMC, then definitely you will be very new to this programming field. Okay, so which was the first program you executed? Probably it is hello world, isn't it? So in it may be any language, we usually go for hello world or printing some hi or names. So what you felt when you wrote the first program? So I don't think you would have you would have felt much bigger thing, isn't it? So what just printing some hello world or hi on the monitor, it is not a big deal, isn't it? But you felt actually happy when you took the input from the keyboard, when you processed that particular input and then you presented the same input, or after processing the result which was presented on the monitor, that time you felt actually happy, isn't it? You felt like you did something new. You took the input from the keyboard and you processed something and you put that particular thing on the monitor, isn't it? That time you got that idea of writing program little bit at least. Okay, if I consider about C, then definitely it is printf and scanf, and it has got its own syntax, and you followed that syntax and ultimately you got some output, isn't it? So in the same fashion, whenever we talk about input and output, definitely it is one of the important part of this programming language. Okay, now how Java handles input and output, so let us see that. So in Java we have something called streams. Okay, so you have to remember one thing: Java is an object oriented programming. That means almost everywhere you will be using the object concepts, and there will be n number of classes. It may be predefined classes or user defined classes. What is the difference? So if it is a user defined classes, you are writing the class and you are creating all those things, and it may be constructor, it may be n number of methods, variables, and you are going to dump all those information inside a class. But if it is a predefined classes, definitely someone else would have done it. You are just trying to make use of those classes, maybe using inheritance concept, or overloading or overriding, or it may be anything. There are a number of techniques. When we start coding, we will see each and every techniques in detail. Okay, so let us concentrate on this IO. Now Java programs performs IO through streams. A stream is an abstraction that either produces or consumes information. Okay, so a stream is linked to a physical device by Java IO system. All streams behave in the same manner even if the actual physical devices to which they are linked differ. So ultimately, so in Java we have something called streams. So if you want to receive the input, if you want to put the output on the monitor, if you want to read it, or if you want to write it, either it depends, depending on the explanation, you can take the terminologies. Okay, so in Java we will be having the concept of streams. Okay, so these streams are linked to the hardware devices. Why you need physical devices over here? Because if you want to read some input from the keyboard, definitely keyboard is nothing but nothing but a hardware device. So it is connected to the system. So even hardware devices will be having its own addresses, isn't it? Ultimately, using those addresses, you will be targeting that particular hardware device. So it may be for reading, it may be for processing, it may be for anything. So if you want to say, for example, if you want to output some music data to the speaker, or if you want to create one file and if you want to dump some information to that particular file, and using program you have to shift that particular file to USB drive. So obviously you can write separate codes, isn't it? So to shift that particular data to USB drive, you need some path, isn't it? Yeah, in the low level, definitely processor will find the address of that particular USB, where it has been plugged, and what is the address given to that particular USB or hardware device. So in higher level, we will just see you are just plugging the USB, and you will see some pop-up on the monitor, and you are going to double click it, and you are going to access the files. But programmatically, what you are doing, programmatically you have to find the path. And if you go in depth, or if you go in terms of binaries, definitely it is a series of zeros and ones, isn't it? Ultimately your addresses also will be converted to zeros and ones. Processor will understand only zeros and ones, or binary system, isn't it? So that is the reason why Java actually has got streams. Okay, it is a concept which is required for IO operations. Fine. Now streams are a clean way to deal with the input output without having every part of your code understand the difference between a keyboard and a network. For example, Java implements streams within class hierarchies defined in java.io package. So here, you are maybe new to this concept, package concept, isn't it? In rest of the programming language, I don't think you would have used package concepts. So Java is rich in packages. Okay, so packages are nothing but, see, instead of writing each and every line from the scratch, what you are doing, you are just borrowing all the concepts which are already available or readily available, I can say like that, or some other developers would have done that particular work, and you are just trying to inherit all the properties of that particular thing. You can imagine something like that. If something is already made, or if something is ready made, you just go for ready made instead of writing each and everything from the scratch. So it is not new to Java. In C also you would have done the same thing, isn't it? To print something on the monitor, what you do, you just go for printf function, isn't it? What is that printf function? You are actually passing some arguments to that particular function, isn't it? In the background, what happens? There will be separate code for printing all those information on the monitor. Don't you think like that? It is not just like you say in the double quotes hi, and the hi will be on the monitor. It is not like that. In the background, there will be so many processing concepts. Who is going to access the hardware device, like monitor? Where it will be, what is the address of that monitor, how to access the monitor, how to convert your hi, which is in a graphical representation, h and I, and these h and I will be having equivalent ASCII numbers. That ASCII numbers have to convert it to this particular binary stream. That binary stream has to be stored in some memory locations. After the processing, you have to pass that binary stream to the output screen, and again that graphical representation of h and I should be reflecting on that monitor. So there are so many work actually. But as a user, as a high, you are like a programmer who uses high level programming. You are just making use of that printf function, which is predefined, which is there in your header file. Using that header file only, you are using that function, isn't it? Printf function, stdio.h, isn't it? Standard input output.h. In the same fashion, for Java, you will be having something called packages. Okay, so java.io is nothing but, if you want to use IO input output, you should be importing these packages for your program. Fine. So you will see, while coding, you will see so many packages. Don't worry, but you have to think like that. So if you want to do some work, if it is already available, some stubs or code snippets are already available, you can make use of that code snippets for your benefits instead of writing each and everything from the scratch. That will be easy. Actually, it will reduce the burden on the developer, isn't it? So that is nothing but a package. Okay, you can imagine like that. Okay, so whenever you start coding, you will see a lot of package concepts in future. Fine. The next thing is byte streams and character streams. So there are two types of streams. So in the previous slide, I explained about streams. Like for input output operations, Java uses streams. Fine. Now how many different types of streams are available in Java? So it is one is byte stream and another one is character stream. So byte, see, what you mean by byte? How many bits? One byte means how many bits? It is 8 bits, isn't it? So what is 4 bits? What you say for 4 bits? It is one nibble. Okay, so 1 byte is 8 bits. 4 bits, if you want to consider 4 bits, it is one nibble. Fine. So byte streams provide a convenient means of handling input and output of bytes. That means whenever you are using byte streams, you will be trying to read the series of bits. Okay, so it will be like binary data. Fine. So based on that particular streams, you can use it for reading and writing the binary data. Obviously that will be the application of byte streams. Okay, so and character streams provide a convenient means of handling input output of characters. Fine. Characters are nothing but, say, if you want to read your own name, if you want to type SVS, if you want to type Bantwal, obviously it is a series of characters, isn't it? One word will be having so many characters. Ultimately you will be reading all those characters from the keyboard, and you can process it, or you can store it, you can manipulate it based on your requirement. You can do anything. Fine. So there are two types actually in terms of streams, if you want to think. So it is a byte stream and character stream. So they are they use Unicode, and therefore can be internationalized. So I already explained about Unicode in maybe second video or third video, I don't remember that. So if you want to keep that particular character as a Unicode, that means any kind of character can be represented. It is not just for English or just for Hindi or any other. Fine. So if you want to make it a particular character as a Unicode, it can be internationalized. Whatever it may be the representation concepts, you can make use of those codes for your program. That is the meaning. Okay, so the next thing is, at the lowest level all IO is still byte oriented. Why at the lowest level all IO is still byte oriented? Because processor will only understand zeros and ones. It won't understand characters, it won't understand images. Processor will never understand videos. It requires only zeros and ones, and ultimately you will be representing each and everything. Whatever you see on the monitor, each and everything is a graphical representation, and in the background there will be so many series of bits will be flowing. Okay, in images also, whenever you see some images, there will be lakhs of bits to represent that particular image. So if you see hi on the monitor, definitely there will be so many pixels will be glowing, isn't it? So it will be using so many pixels, and obviously that graphics requires some bits. So whatever the character you use, alphabets you use, numeric characters you use, or special characters you use on the monitor or on the system, definitely it will be having its own ASCII values or equivalent ASCII values. And once you get the ASCII value, you can convert that ASCII value to binary. How? Decimal to binary conversions, isn't it? And once you get the binary, you can store it, or you can process it, or you can manipulate it, or you can display some information on the monitor depending on your requirement as a programmer. Fine. So that is the reason why they say at the lowest level IO is still byte oriented, because byte oriented streams mainly concentrate on binary data. Fine. The character based streams simply provide a convenient and efficient means of handling characters. Obviously it is a general sentence, it is not a big deal here, because when this stream concepts, character stream concepts, you already used in many programming language. It may be C and C++. Obviously you read some characters, isn't it? So that is nothing but, so it is easy also, because as a human being, instead of going for series of bits, zeros and ones, it is easy to go for say for example characters or alphanumeric concepts. If you say hi Kiran, isn't it? So there will be how many characters? There will be series of characters, isn't it? Hi will be having two characters, and there is one space. Even space considers as a particular character, isn't it? There will be separate space. There will be separate space required for in the memory. So even space has got its own ASCII value, isn't it? Each and everything is a series of bits. You have to imagine in that fashion. Fine. So the next thing is the byte stream. Let us see what are byte stream and what are the classes available for this. And remember one thing, in Java almost everything is, you are using, or you are coding, or you are creating the object for anything, it will be using classes. There are n number of classes in Java. So based on your requirements, you will be using the required classes, and you may be creating some objects, and you may be overriding some methods or you may be using some methods which are already available in that class. Now, if you are finding difficulty to understand this particular class and object concepts, you have to brush up all the previous C++ concepts. What you mean by class, what is an object, why you want object, when you create or when you instantiate the object, what happens, what are constructors, what are destructors. Okay, so all these informations are required, otherwise it is difficult for you to move on. Fine. Now there are byte streams are defined by using two class hierarchies. At the top are two abstract classes, input stream and output stream. So what you mean by abstract classes? So can you recall the previous concepts? What is abstract class? Now what is the speciality? What is the speciality of normal class and abstract class? See, for normal class you can create an object, you can instantiate, but for abstract class you cannot instantiate, you cannot go for objects, you cannot create any object for abstract class. You have to remember this. You can create the variables, you can name some variables for abstract classes, but you cannot create any object. Whenever you see any concept of abstract class, you have to remember that for that particular class you cannot create object. Fine. You cannot instantiate. That is the meaning. That means there is no concept of constructor for that class, isn't it? So whenever you create an object, what happens? Constructor will be, default constructor will be automatically called. And if there are any assignment concepts, it is going to assign some value to the variables. Or while creating the object, if you are passing some parameters, the same values will be initialized. Isn't it? All those concepts will happen, isn't it? Now whenever you create an object, the memory will be allocated for our entire class concepts, or it may be methods, or how many variables are present inside the class. That much memory will be reserved whenever you create the object. You have to remember all your C++ concepts. Once you get in touch with this object class concepts, you can implement these concepts in any other programming language. It may be C# also, in Java also, or any object oriented programming. Fine. So this C++ is a basic concept. So it's a basic, the foundation. You have to be very strong with the foundation things. So if you have any doubt, you can contact me. That is a separate part of story. But if you are not at all understanding the concept of class and object, I request you to contact me, because otherwise it will be very difficult for you to understand Java, because without having the basic foundation, you cannot go to the next step. Fine. Now say, as I said, there are two abstract classes. So they are input stream and output stream. Okay, the abstract class input stream and output stream define several key methods that the other stream classes implement. That means this input stream and output stream classes will be having its own methods. What you mean by method? See, don't get confused. Method is nothing but function. Okay, so in C and C++ we used to say functions, but in Java, instead of using the terminology functions, we are using methods. We are saying methods. Say for example, main method, it is not main function. Or if you have some function, you can say some method, SUM. It is not SOME, SUM, some method. Or addition method, or subtraction method. Instead of saying addition function, subtraction function, we can say method. Now don't get confused. Method means you should not imagine something else. Method is nothing but the functions. Okay, it is a standard way of saying in Java platform or Java environment. You have to think like that. Fine. Now, so there will be n number of methods for the implementation, or for the input and output thing. Okay, the two most important are read and write. Okay, read is one method, write is another method. So if it is in C or in C++, what you used to say, it is a read function and write function. But here in Java, what I say, read method or write method. Both are actually equal, both are same, but the terminology differs. That's it. Okay, respectively. And read and write bytes of data. Obviously read method will read the series of data from the user, and write will put all the stream of bits to the output device. It may be anything. Fine. Based on the application level or based on the requirement, you can choose a particular output device. Fine. Now both methods are declared as abstract inside input stream and output stream. So you are declaring read and write method as abstract. That means for these methods you cannot you are not able to instantiate. You just make use of these methods for your work. That's it. Fine. You have to think in that way. So whenever you create any object for the class, based on using that object and dot operator, you will be calling so many methods which are present inside the respective class, isn't it? So you require object, you require dot operator, and you are just naming the method, and that is nothing but that instruction will call your particular method for the execution. So they inside the class you may be having n number of methods. There will be method definition, isn't it? The method declaration may be there, or method definition will be there based on your coding skills. How you actually code, based on that the class will be available. Fine. Now there are some examples over here. You can see buffered input stream, buffered output stream, byte array input stream, file input stream, or file output stream, or byte array output stream. So you have n number of byte stream classes. So whenever we go for coding or coding examples, we can see the different type of byte stream classes. So you have to remember one thing. See, Java is case sensitive, so make sure that you don't get confused with the spellings. So if you are using buffered input stream, you have to write B as a capital one, I also capital, S also capital. If you make any mistakes, that means you are not referring to the predefined classes, because these are the predefined classes. You are not creating these classes. You are just borrowing the properties of those classes for your benefits. Fine. It is a case sensitive. Never ever forget this. So whenever you write any code or whenever you go for Java programming, if the class name, how the class name is, in the same fashion you have to write it. Don't make any spelling mistakes or uppercase, lowercase concept. You may not get the output at the end. Fine. So that is the reason why I am highlighting this concept. The next thing is character stream classes. So the previous was a byte stream classes. So usually byte stream classes will deal with the binary data. So you will be having two main methods, read and write, and you will be using input stream and output stream as an abstract class. Fine. Using those classes, you will be implementing, or you will be calling all these methods for your work. Now whenever we concentrate on character stream classes, see, character streams are defined by using two class hierarchies. At the top are two abstract classes, reader and writer. Okay, here the abstract class name is reader and writer. In the previous slide, what was the abstract class names? It was input stream as well as output stream, isn't it? Here it is reader and writer. You should not get confused. Okay, in the previous slide, read and write was the method, okay, which was present inside those classes. But in this case, reader and writer are the abstract class itself. That is the name of the abstract class. Okay, these abstract classes handle Unicode character streams. So obviously it is required to get the characters from the input devices or outside world. Fine. The abstract classes reader and writer define several key methods that the other stream classes implement. Two of the most important methods are read and write. So now you should not get confused here also. So read and write methods are available in both the streams. It may be for a byte stream or character stream, but based on the abstract class you will be using these methods. Fine. The name will be same. You are overriding the name. What is overriding? The method name will be very same. You are not going to change the method name or anything. You are just making or copy of that. You are making the entire copy. It is just a ditto copy of it. Fine. And you are using for your code, isn't it? Overloading. Now I want everyone to list out the difference between overloading and overriding. Okay, so if it was a class, definitely I would have asked individually, but now it is not possible. I want everyone to brush up the concept of overloading and overriding. What is the difference between overloading and overriding? I'm pretty sure that in C++ you have already learned this. That is the reason why I said in the initial stage only, I said make sure that your basics are strong. If you have very strong basics, it is actually easy for me to explain, because I don't need to go in depth with each and every concepts. Now in Java you will be having somewhat different, like the syntax will be somewhat different, and you will be having n number of packages. You will be calling you will be doing so many overriding concepts. You will be using so many classes. You will be creating so many objects, and you will be calling so many predefined methods for your work. So only that is the difference. Rest of the things are almost the same. And this, in Java you will be having the special magic word called byte word. So it is like compile once and run anytime anywhere, isn't it? In the second or third first or second video I talked about this byte word. That is a specialty of Java. Now there is nothing big deal here. When you have the basics of C++, you are just upgrading it, or you are going to the next level. That's it. Don't get stressed out, or don't get confused here. Fine. Now there will be somewhat different in terminologies, something like functions and methods and all those things. You have to it will not be a problem for you once you start coding. See, remember one thing, it may be any programming language. Until and unless you start coding, you will feel confused every time. But once you start coding, once you get the output on the screen, then there will not be any room for the confusion. Remember this much. Okay, so these are the theoretical concepts I am putting on the slides. When we start actually coding, when I give so many examples of codes, when I execute something, you can visualize the execution, and then you will get to know that why exactly you used all these classes, all these objects, all these methods for your program. Then once you understand that particular thing, then you can create your own program. Then you can write your own ideas of, you can implement your own ideas on the program, isn't it? So that is the thing. Now there are some examples here: buffered reader, file writer, file reader, print writer, print reader, string reader, string writer, and so on. There are so many actually stream classes. So based on the requirement, you can make use of different classes. Fine. The next thing is there are something like predefined streams. Okay, so now predefined streams are nothing but, see, all Java programs automatically import java.lang package. This package defines a class called system, which encapsulates several aspects of runtime environment. See, you have to see one thing. See, you would have actually, if you are concentrating on this particular thing, you would have got one doubt. In the previous 2-3 slides back, I said java.io. I said you have to borrow so many packages for your program. But in the previous session video, I directly given one example program where I did not use any packages, isn't it? I did not go for import java.io or java.lang or anything as such, isn't it? Directly I have created one class. Inside the class, directly I have gone for some variables and I printed something on the monitor. I have given that particular example program. If you have any doubt, you can go to the previous video and you can check. Now, how it has happened? See, because Java programs automatically import this java.lang package. See, whenever you say automatically, it is implicit, isn't it? It is not explicit thing. Implicit means you don't need to interfere there. Automatically Java, whenever you write some programs without importing any packages, automatically it uses java.lang package. Now what this java.lang package will do, it will be having its own classes, isn't it? So how you are going to print something on the monitor? It is system.out.println or system.out.print, isn't it? You are using those things, isn't it? Now system is nothing but a class. Don't you think like that? Now you will be using dot operator and you are going for out. And then after that again one dot operator, then you are going to call method called println or print. Why you are using println print? If you want to print something on the monitor, you should be using this method. That is the reason. That is the meaning of that particular line. That is the reason why you write system.out.println followed by some values inside the brackets. Okay, so that is what they are saying here. So it is a predefined method, stream, and there will be separate. Automatically you are going to import some packages, that is nothing but java.lang, and system is a class which is defined inside that particular package. Okay, now system also contains 3 predefined stream variables: in, out, and error or ERR. Okay, now system.out, system.in, and error for standard error, it has got its own streams. Fine, that is the reason why you go for system.out.println. And if you want to go, go for in, then you maybe for reading purpose and all, you can go for system.in, because input from system you are going to get the input. That is a somewhat that can be the explanation I can give for this. Fine. So these are the predefined streams, and these are the stream variables. In is a stream variable, and out is a stream variable, err is a stream variable. Okay, now system.err refers to the standard error stream, which also is the console by default. So if there are any errors, if you want to list out some errors, or if there are any system errors, or if you are not going to get the output for something based on the technical errors, then you can make use of this stream variable for displaying it, or getting the error concepts, or error log. Fine. Now the next thing is system.in is an object of type input stream. In system.out and system.err are the objects of type print stream. Okay, now input stream, so you have to remember this input stream class and print stream classes. Those are the actual classes. Now system.in is nothing but an object for that input stream. So if you want to get the input stream, if you want to use that particular class to get the input from the outside world, or if you want to get the input from the end user, definitely you should be going for system.input. Now if you want to output it, or if you want to print something, then you can go for system.out or system.err. Obviously, why you are using system.err? If there any error which has encountered in between, then you can put that particular error on the monitor, on the screen. Okay, these are byte streams, even though they typically are used to read and write characters from and to the console. So that means basically these two things are the byte streams. That means that there will be a concept of series of bits, reading the series of bits or sequence of bits. But usually we go for the character things, isn't it? You are printing something, say for example hello world, or SVS Buntwald, isn't it? You can go for system.out.println. In the double quotes you can type whatever the concept you want to type, and you can directly print. You can just see the output on the monitor. So these are the predefined streams. You should not get confused. Okay, you probably, if you had a system, or if you have watched my previous videos, obviously you would have used these predefined streams, isn't it? In that programs you have that system.out.println concept. Fine. So you have to remember this. Now let me explain this one thing, then I will wind up. So reading the console input. Now how to read the input from the user. Now you may be wondering why we need all these things, because reading something from the keyboard we have already seen in C and C++. There will be separate small changes will be there in Java, that's it, isn't it? But in Java, when you are writing a program, when Java mainly concentrate on application background, or for network programming application you can create, system application you can create, or for Android also there is a concept of Java. So obviously all these things are put together, then obviously it will be like you have to concentrate on each and every bits also, each and every input concepts also you should be very thorough with. Otherwise it will be difficult for you in some situations, not in all. Say something like if you want to shift something, or if you want to change number of bits or series of bits, or if you want to monitor a kind of input coming from the user, isn't it? Each and everything has to be monitored, means definitely you have to go in depth. It is not like a high level one. You have to go low level concepts like zeros and ones only. At that time you require the concept of these reading concepts, or reading console input concepts. Fine. Now in Java, console input is accomplished by reading from system.in. To obtain the character based streams that is attached to the console, you wrap system.in in a buffer reader object to create the character stream. So you can see a new concept here, buffered reader object. So you will be using this object for getting the input from the console. Fine. Now buffered reader supports a buffered input stream. It most most commonly used constructor. So there is a concept here. So you can see the constructor for that particular buffered input stream. So it is buffered reader and reader space input reader. So it's a constructor you are going to automatically, you may be calling this particular constructor whenever you go for the coding. Here see input reader. What is that input reader? Input reader is the stream that is linked to the instance of buffered reader that is being created. Okay, so buffered reader is nothing but, what is buffered reader? Buffered reader is nothing but an object, and you are going to link that particular concept with the input reader, so that whenever you read the input from the user, you have to keep that particular data somewhere in the memory. Fine, isn't it? Whenever you read the input from the user, that input has to be, whatever the data given by the user, that has to be stored somewhere in the buffer or in the memory. So for that you will be using this particular buffered reader concept. Okay, now reader is nothing but an abstract class. Can you remember that reader and writer, that character stream? You have to remember, see, everything has got its own link. You have to be attentive in these explanations. So reader is an abstract class, and this reader abstract class comes under character streams, isn't it? Not in a byte stream. In the byte stream you have input stream and output stream as an abstract class, but for character stream you have reader and writer abstract classes. So here you are using reader as an abstract class, and for this buffered reader concept. Okay, to obtain an input stream reader object that is linked to system.in. So if you want to get the input stream reader, then you are using which constructor? You are using input stream reader constructor. Now what is the difference? So if you want to get in terms of binaries, or if you want to go for the byte stream concept, then you have to go for input stream abstract class. But if you want to go for character streams, then you have to go for reader abstract class. Can you see, can you recall this? See here in this explanation I have said reader and writer. These are the abstract class for character stream classes. Now can you see here input stream and output stream? These two are the abstract classes which are available for byte stream classes. So now don't get confused. Each and almost so many classes will be there in Java, because each and everything you use classes, and using that classes only you will perform some tasks. Fine. Now whenever you go for the program itself, you get to know. Fine. Now as of now you just see the syntaxes, how to use the constructor, how constructor will work on system.in object. Fine. Now the next thing is, see, the following line of code creates the buffer reader. So I will show you the this one. You can see the particular line in the below only. The following code creates buffer reader that is connected to the keyboard. So obviously you are getting the input from the keyboard, means definitely you will be having this object. You are using this buffered reader, and you will be creating one variable with the name br equal to, you are going to you are using new concept, new keyword for this particular buffered reader. Now inside the buffered reader, what you are doing, you are creating input stream reader. Fine. Why it is input stream reader? You are going to get the input from the user, and you are going to keep it in a particular place, particular buffer. But what is a buffer? Now don't get again confused. What is a buffer? Buffer is a space, isn't it, where you can keep something, or where you can keep the data. So that is the reason why you are using buffered reader. If you want to read something or input from the user, you will be using this buffered reader. Fine. Now inside the bracket you have system.in. Why that system.in? Because you want to read something from the user. That is the reason why you use system.in. Now as you are using byte level concepts, that is the reason why you go for input stream reader. You are calling that particular thing. You are creating that instantiation. You are instantiating this using new keyword. Fine. Now after this statement executes, br is a character based stream that is linked to the console through system.in. Now what is the meaning of above code? You are creating a link between br character variable or stream, I can say stream, character base, it's a stream. with the system.in. So you are linking br and system.in. That means directly whatever you read from the user, it will be there in br stream or br character stream. Okay, br will hold all the data which is being read from the keyboard. That is the meaning. Okay, so okay, I will explain this reading characters in the next video, because don't get confused with each and everything. So whatever we have seen so far, recall those concepts. If you want, you can make note of this. You can make a small notebook for this to write the class names, and you can create your own linking concepts, how to use the links. So inside the byte stream classes, what are the available examples, or what are the available classes? Inside character stream classes, what are you are going to get? What are the abstract classes you have? What are the methods you have? Isn't it? So if you are finding difficulty here, it is better to make a note separately. Just by listening to me or just by seeing the slides, you may not remember each and everything. And you have to remember one thing: Java is like an ocean. Fine, it is very vast. So whatever the syllabus we have, we are going to cover, but it doesn't mean that you are within 6 months you are learning within this syllabus. I can say not within 6 months. Within this syllabus you are learning entire Java. It is not possible. Entire Java, it is not that easy. It requires years and years to get the mastery in Java. Fine. So because you have n number of packages, each and every packages we are not using in a day-to-day life. Based on that particular requirements, you may be finding the packages, and you cannot buy heart each and every packages every time. So there will be separate manuals, separate reference concepts and all required. But these are the basic concepts. Now, right now, whatever the explanation I have given, these are the basic things, because each and every program will be having its own read and write things, or input output console concepts. Fine. So now reading the characters, I will explain in the next video. So far you can brush up all the previous things, and again I would like to say, go and brush up all the basics of object oriented programming, because if I start explaining from the scratch, then it will take more time, because I am having the mindset that you have already cleared C++, you know the concept of objects, you know the concept of class, you know the concept of characters, creating the object, creating the instance, and defining the methods or declaring the methods, or initializing the variables. So and going for the abstract classes, inheritance concepts, polymorphism, encapsulation, abstraction. So I think that you know all those things. That's the reason why I'm going with a little more faster, speed. So if you are not understanding the concept, you can contact me, so that I can give some ideas to get the foundation of object oriented programming. Otherwise it will be, trust me, otherwise it will be very difficult for you to understand Java, because without foundation, without object oriented programming's foundation, it is very difficult for you to understand. Remember this much. Fine. So let me wind up here. Thanks for watching. So the rest of the concept will be in the next video. Thank you.